is the adaptation of a Debbie, and we adapted Community Promise. We called it Voices from the Community. And we found that in New York State there was a high problem of syphilis among men who had sex with men. And the state gave out different regional grants, and the Finger Lakes region, we were fortunate enough to receive one of these grants. I was the project coordinator at that point in time for the project, and the following are a list of the people that worked with us. Pat Coyer, the director of the CHBT and the local STD clinic. Dr. Fields was our evaluator, all things that were important when you do a project like this. A few of the people that were keeping us with the project, the people, key players will be noted on slides with the different role model stories that were written. Like I said, support from a grant from the New York State Health Department, the Bureau of STDs, and originally Community Promise was called the AIDS Demonstration Project, and what we needed to do with this is we needed to focus on the integration of STD and HIV prevention for the young population in Rochester, New York, and the surrounding areas. Community Promise was originally done. There were two objects to it. It was to focus on clean needles for injection drug users and condoms to be used for all in search of sex. That there were other behavioral determinants that we needed to look at in dealing with the syphilis problem in our region. To do a Debbie, the elements that it's important to keep to the elements, because if you change one of them, then you're not doing the Debbie as it was originally done, which you will not have the same effective outcomes. So in Voices from the Community, our courses were community identification, role models, peer advocates, and evaluation, and we will look at each of these in detail. Education is probably the most important aspect of doing Community Promise. It is the identification process that will lead you to success or keep you from success. You need to make sure you have epidata, demographics. You need to sit in the community and do actual visual of what's going on within the community, and that all time, and it is a lot of time and a lot of risk, but that you need to look at while you're doing this, find out who's at risk, what behavior that's going on, is that are creating the risk. What do people in the community know about the risk? What are the beliefs, their thoughts about it? And you need to ask the question, how bad would it become if it became infected with STD or HIV? And what are the social norms of the community? What information about what is risky and what isn't risky? Is this information, or is it just things that have been passed down? Where do people find their medical treatment? And where do people turn to get their information about sex? Identification process. It's important to start before actually going into the project, but it's an ongoing process. You do a communication process and stop. It's ongoing during the entire process of doing Community Promise. The second element is a role model story. And stories are written from people that you will meet during the community identification process that had success in taking a step, changing his or her behavior, and recognizing that something may put that person at risk for HIV, STD, or both. When the role stories are done, they're very personal. It's when you pick it up and read it, it's just like you are getting to know that person. So their big age, race, ethnicity, if they're suburban, if they're gay identified. In our process, we had a lot of them that were on the down low. Looking at specific target behaviors, we care of everything going on within a community. So we looked at sexual, substance abuse, and healthcare seeking. We have to know where we are in readiness for change, which we'll talk about the stages of change, and the venues that people are in. Is it the bathhouse? Is it parks? Are they meeting in chat rooms? How are people hooking up? There's some factors, too, that go on with our role model stories. Let people know, what is their knowledge of STD and HIV and connection between the two? Their attitudes about it. Do they perceived risk? Do they have personal standards? How do they defy? What are the perceptions of benefits? What are the expectancies? If I get this, what's going to happen? What are their intentions? Their self-efficacy. What do to take care of themselves? Emotions are involved in all this. Everything that we do is emotional. Sexual relation dynamics. Sometimes there's power and control. There's certain social norms, or cultural and religious norms that we have to look at. All these take part in what we do as human beings. And that's really stages of change. And the 5 stages of change are pre-contemplative, contemplative, ready for action, action, and maintenance. I believe most of our stories are set either in the pre-contemplative or contemplative phases. If they're pre-contemplative, they believe that there's any risk, so no risk, there's no reason to change. And contemplative, they understand that there's a risk, but there's something in the barrier that we need to get across to make the change. Some stories aren't ready for action, and they're all ready to make that change. They've looked going on and going to do. But most of our stories are pre-contemplative and contemplative. Right? There's 8 components: the characterization, membership, risk behavior, goal behavior, stages of change, influencing factor, the barriers to change and the methods to overcome, and a positive outcome. Positive outcomes might be something very simple, and we'll get into these in just a few minutes. First of all, characterization. This is where you're going to find your person in the story. Kind of gives you a hint of what's going on in that person's life. This is where we start to get to know who the person really is. Help enhance the characterization of the role model. By the time we do this, we were the populace is, where they hang out, what's going on. Membership could be that they were that they are identified, non-gamified, but this is one of those things that when a person starts reading a story, they're going to be able to associate with, which make the story more personal for the reader. The risk behavior is. There's no risk behavior, there really isn't a story. What's going on in the person's life that is putting them at risk for HIV or STDs. And we've got to let the people that are reading the stories see that there's a risk and give an idea of what kind of barriers are in the way for making a safer decision. There's a goal. What do we want the person to do in our story? Those healthcare seeking, maybe just go to a clinic and get checked out. People believe that there is any risk and don't see that they need to look for something. So we need to have a goal behavior. I see change, and I went through the 5 stages. So what's going to motivate the person to move? Now, we don't want somebody to go from pre-contemplative to having done it for months and months. It's got to change. It's a very slow process. In our story, to read that. So we want the person to move just one stage. If they have any reason to believe that they were at risk, and during they found out that something is going that creates the idea that they might be at risk, something to overcome, we've moved from what we call PC to C, or pre-contemplative to contemplative. And it just moves